Welcome, everybody. Now, without further ado, I would invite Valay Singh, lead India Justice Report, to kickstart the evening.
Well, thank you, Sarab. And Sarab is just about 6 months into the job. So, what I'm trying to say is that we are a very young team, we are a very small team, and we are very, very delighted to have all of you here with us to mark the completion of 5 years of the India Justice Report Collective, in which time we have published 4 reports ranking the capacity of states, and we have built a small community that is guided by data, and data doesn't mean only numbers. So therefore, to take you through the key findings of the report, I would like to invite Maya, the pivot, the glue that holds this whole collective together, who guides our work relentlessly and drives us also relentlessly.
I thought he was going to say crazy. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to make some corrections of what Valay said before I start, because it's always better to keep these people down. You see, it was what he said about his young team. He was referring only to me. Just wanted to say that. Now, before I get into talking about the India Justice Report, because it is a long report and it is full of statistics and it can be a lot to absorb, we have some questions that we are putting on to the screen. Oh, sorry, I can't. Yeah, where's the screen? Ah, thank you. Okay, so we have some questions, and I don't know how you want to do this, whether you want to put your hands up. Sorry? All right. Can somebody please put off the lights or dim the lights or something? Is not on? Is on? It's green. Oh, okay. Now can you hear me? Now better? Okay. Okay, please remove the standee, somebody. No, I can't see. You can see. I'll shout, okay? All right, so here are the questions. What is the total number of psychiatrists and psychologists? Remember, we go to jail for rehabilitation and to be reintegrated into society. So given that, what is the total number of psychiatrists and psychologists in prison in the country? We don't mean in prison by the psychologists, but we mean how many are serving? Is it A, B, C, or D? How many for A? B. Who said B? How many people are saying B? All right. How many people are saying C? Come on, be realistic, guys. Come on. And D? Nobody. Nobody thinks 417. Ah, Yashu says. Okay. So is the B going to carry it? Lots of people were non-committal. This is not allowed. B. You would be absolutely right. 6 lakh prisoners, 25 psychologists, out of which most of them are in 2 or 3 states. Next question. I think you're very clever, by the way. Next question. Oh, same one. Let's change it. Women's representation in the judiciary have witnessed a rise. What, according to you, is the share of women in high courts? 1 minute, guys. A. Huh? Aha! I've been told by my colleague that all of you are cheating. Well, that is a tradition and we should carry on. Okay, A, is 25%, B is 32%, C is 14%, and D is 47%. Correct, 14%. Next time, we don't give you the cheat sheet beforehand. You're not cheating. Okay, all right. Okay, the next question. Nearly 80% of India's population is eligible for legal aid. What do you think is the per capita spend on legal aid? A, 53, B, 06 rupees, C, 12, and D, 97. B. Why do you all have such a low opinion of our budgetary capabilities? Huh? Well, you are right. B is correct. Okay, well done, audience. Well done. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been introduced, you've been welcomed, and I'd like to begin on talking to you about the India Justice Report and generally taking you through it. I was going to begin with a big flourish, a sort of philosophical flourish about law and justice, and that would blow your minds, and you would all run out of the room saying, "We want justice, we want justice." But I have to tell you that the first thing I want to say is that this report is 2 years, years of damned hard work. And it's hard work of the team that you see standing over there. They are all, as Valet says, or as Valet reproaches me with, they are all very young. And I would like to recognize them. Please put your hands up or stand. And I'd also like to thank, before I do anything more, my partner organizations, all of whom are sitting on the stage and whose names are up there, and HIL, which is How India Lives, which is our statistical partner. Sadly, the gentleman, Avinash, who works with us, has had a bereavement and can't be here tonight. John is here. Where's John? John, stand up for a minute. Well done, John. And our advisory committee, and of course, Madan, who has been a mentor to us and who has walked all the way with us. And so my job is to present the report. And if I falter, please forgive me. And the rest of my job through the year is to stand around and look very worried. Okay? So that is my entire contribution to the report. So here we are. We should go to the next slide. Yeah. Okay. And I have to say, like many of my age, I am not very good with technology. So what is the India Justice Report about? And why does it matter? And what are the limitations? The first thing is that we are purely a capacity assessing report. We don't look at performance. We don't look at culture. We don't look at the quality of outcomes. Though the quality of outcomes can easily be seen from a pinpointed look at the data, whether it is aggregated and when it is disaggregated. We look at 4 pillars of the justice system. As you can see, police, prisons, judiciary, legal aid, and now State Human Rights Commission. That's an add-on, not this year, but last year. And what do we look at? We basically look to see if these are service delivery organizations, then what do they need in order to deliver? They need money, budgets, they need human resources, people, they need infrastructure, and what is their workload? Can they cope with the workload? And as many of my followers and fans will hear me say, I have 7 or 8 on Twitter. So they will tell you that I always look for diversity because I believe that justice systems that are delivering justice must certainly be just in themselves, in that they must represent the people that they serve. So this is how we look at it. And we also look at trends. Who's done better? How are they doing? Are they going to do better in the future? What is going to happen? We have over 100 indicators, and they are all aggregated together into a ranking, and that is how we do the work. Now, one of the things I want to tell you, because we are often castigated for that, is that, oh, it's odious to compare. But we are not comparing, we are putting a rank onto states with the aggregations that we have. But we are not comparing states with each other. We recognize that states have their own contexts. They have their own GDPs. They have their own large populations. And that is why it is a competition of a state with itself over time. So we clumped these states together, 18 large states, 7 small states, and several states that we don't count as, or rather we count them, but we don't rank them because they have long been under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, or they've had conflicts like J&K and the states of the Northeast, and they simply do not compare either with each other or with the large and small states. So I hope that I've clarified what the remit of the Justice Report is. Now let me begin by talking about the main thing: the money moves the mayor. So let me talk to you a little about the money. Who gets the bucks and where does the bucks go? If you look at the little pile on the right, you will see that the police get at 1,275 rupees per capita if we divide up the budget. Judiciary gets much, much less than that. The figures are on the thing. I'm not going to bother with saying them. Prisons gets even less than that. And you all guessed that the legal aid gets 6 rupees. And 6 rupees is double what they used to get 2 years ago. Okay? And yet they have this huge remit. So naturally, the police get the most. It's not a favoritism thing. It's because there are nearly 2 million police. And the judiciary, no, you've missed one of the, it's 1,275. The 5 has gone to the bottom. There, that's all right. Okay, so then this comes to, if you aggregate all of the judiciary, and I want to make, okay, I'll tell you about that in a minute. So it comes to less than 5% of the total state expenditure in most states. Okay, this is your judiciary. This is your overall budgets for justice. And one of the things that the IJR is going to do is in July or August, we are going to bring out a new publication called Budgets for Justice. Because right at the foundational efficacy of the justice system lies how much you are going to spend on it, how much there is available, what you do with it. Now, where does all this money go? 80% and more of the budget goes for salaries. So that leaves very little for innovation, technology, modernization, etc. Who pays this? Well, most of the responsibility comes from the states. The states carry the highest burden of paying for and being responsible for the budget. But about 40% to most states, and in the conflict states, maybe 90%, comes for centrally sponsored schemes, which are basically to help the capital expenditure, build courts, and many other things, modernization, forensics, all of those things might be paid by the center. Okay? Spends vary between states, how much they spend on each thing. You can see over there, Andhra Pradesh on its prisoners spends 733 rupees. and Maharashtra spends only 47. Now, why this is, etc., I do not know. But this is what has come out of the inquiries that we have made or our assessment of the budgets. The Punjab police spend 2,600 rupees per capita on the police, but Bihar spends only 700 or so. Now, so I will turn to the next slide. Now, this is also where priorities show, okay? One of the things of looking at the budgets is you can see the priorities. Now, one thing, well, you must guess what the priority is on something as important as training. Across the, when you're looking at the spend of training on police, it is 1.25% of their budget. 11 of the richest states spend only 1.4% on training. Bihar is the exception. This year, it has spent 6%. That must be quite a cost to them also. But it shows a kind of recognition of how important this is. So, one of the things I want to point out is that training for the higher echelons through the National Police Academy, through the National Judicial Academy, through the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, these are elite training institutions which are well equipped and well resourced. But you will not find the same thing in the states for the lower echelons. And yet, these are the people who we meet with every day, who look after us every day, and who make our dispute resolutions every day. So, these are the foundations that we rely on for the service delivery. Now, one of the things is where money is scarce and when money is at a premium, you would think that whatever money is given is spent. But actually, that's not so. Utilization is problematic. Many states, 50% of all states who received money for modernization grants did not spend all of it. 9 states spent less than 55%. And most states could spend only 80% of their prison budgets. Now, I'm burdening you with so many statistics simply to make the point that where money is scarce, it is not utilized as it should. But in every segment, I am also able to point out to you good practice, people who have done it. Nagaland and Tamil Nadu spent 100% of their funds. Kerala improved its utilization through decentralized planning, and Gujarat through workforce reforms. The reasons for underspend are also well known. The CAG reports and the reports of states coming back to the center have said delayed planning, slow approvals, too many conditionalities, a mismatch between priorities of state and center, weak absorptive capacity, last-minute disbursements, lack of urgency. But that's an interesting one which has been flagged also. So where the system wants to do it, it can. Where resources lie idle, people wait, and the system remains broken. So there's the whole problem of budgets. But can we go to the next slide? Thank you. But if you need money, you also need people. People with manageable workloads, people with infrastructure and support that can actually deliver justice. So how are we doing on this? I could rattle off the numbers in each state, the vacancy rates, etc., but your eyes would glaze over, and certainly my mind would be completely muddled. So let me give you the big picture. The short point is this. There are just too few people running the system. They are too overloaded, and at the bottom of the hierarchy, they are working in suboptimal conditions. It would be fair to say that 1 in every 4 of the 19 or 20 lakh people who are meant to serve the justice system are missing. The degree to which they are missing at average national calculations is on the slide, but that is half the story. So you can see in prisons, they have as much as 30% missing. Civil police, 23% missing. Judiciary, high courts, 33% missing. Subordinate courts, 21% missing. And legal aid, about 6%. Now, how do we calculate this? We calculate it not by making up our own figures, but by looking at what the sanction strength is. The sanction strength itself may not be enough, but we're not looking at the enough or the sufficient. We are saying, you said sanction strength this, and this is the actual strength. So let me go to explaining how this actually works out in the delivery of justice. Okay, this is a very apt slide. It's a seesaw. At one end is the service delivery, and at one end is the need. Let's begin with the judiciary. India has approximately 21,000 judges for a population of 1.4 billion. 1 in 4 posts remains vacant. Now, this has been there. Why am I saying this? This has been there for a decade. This isn't a new shortfall. This amounts to institutional neglect. What else can we say of it? 40 years ago, the Law Commission recommended 50 judges for 10 lakh people. Today, we have sanctioned for ourselves 21. Okay? And actually appointed how many? How many? 15. So we've appointed 15. The Allahabad High Court at 2025 has got a 51% vacancy, and they're the largest court in the country. So that translates, how does that translate? What does that do to us? That translates into the eye-watering number of 5 crore cases. On average, a High Court judge carries 7,000 cases, and a subordinate court judge manages 2,200 cases. It is an impossible task. 61% of these cases are there for 3 years and more, pending for 3 years and more. So yes, they work very hard, but it is an impossible task. And only a few states have managed to reach 100% clearance of these cases that were there. Every year, more cases come in, right? So you have something called the case clearance rate. If it doesn't reach 100 or 110 or 120, you're always going to have arrear. If you always have arrear, your cases are always going to go up. So in 2030, maybe we will reach 6 crore. When do we stop caring? When do we stop thinking that this cannot go on? So, sorry, you're saying something?
Yeah, left.
Okay. Okay. So now what? So it's not that the justice is delayed. Justice is exhausted. And if justice is exhausted, then when we look at jails, jails are suffocating. There are 1,360 jails or so in the country. There used to be about 18 people extra. That is to say, if the occupancy rate is 100, there used to be 118. Now there are 131. Out of this, 4 out of 5 are under trial people. And they are staying longer and longer in prison than before. And you guess the number of psychologists there are, right? Now look at the difference between the reality and the rhetoric. It is good to have rhetoric. If we have rhetoric, we will go on a certain path. we have now the Model Prison Law, Modern Prison Act, which says we must go towards rehabilitation and not have jails as holding cells. But the impossibility of the task before the jailer is that you will never have anything more than that. You're not going to get fine young lads and ladies coming out of jail. They're just going to be disgruntled people who feel the injustice of their lives every day. So, in the fact that it has been like this and it has continued for so long, again, smacks of not a temporary issue that we can sort out, but of a misalignment and a neglect, which I don't know how we are going to get rid of. You have seen the staff shortages, so I won't play for them. I won't talk about them, except to say that the staff are working with their hands tied behind their backs. Security staff are short by 25%. Correctional vacancies go up to 44-45%. In some states, there are no doctors for some jails. In some states, there is a 60% shortage. Medical personnel are handling 3 times what they are supposed to handle. And so these conditions make a nonsense out of the envisioned outcome of a Model Prison Act. We are yet to see what the new criminal laws, with their rather more stringent bail applications, etc., are going to do to jails. Are they going to deepen the crisis or are they going to lessen it? We have to see that. So let us go to the police and see whether they have got a workload that we can live with. As you can see, it's the same problem. India has one of the lowest police to population ratios. 1 police officer for every 830 people. Now that is an improvement on earlier where it was 850. Punjab, now again, there's a vast spread between states. Punjab, for instance, has 1 policeman for 500 people. Bihar has the worst ratio, which is 1 for every 1,700 people. There is a shortfall of 5 lakh personnel. Now, if I was going to talk to policymakers, what would I say? Would I say, let's have more policemen? I don't think so. I think what I would say is, let's have better policing. And better policing will come from better recruitment, not this sudden stop and start recruitment, which means that suddenly after 3 years, you have a huge amount of people coming into training institutions which cannot then bear the weight. So you have poor training. You have, I would say to them that policing has to be shaped by community consultation and not by top-down mandates. And there has to be some system of feedback, some system of accountability that is based in the public, like social audits, like localizing whether a public or a community is satisfied with the police. Those are some of the things that one would wish for, not for more untrained, unaccountable police in the population. Last word about the 4th and somewhat unknown pillar, which is legal aid. As you heard me say, legal aid has a huge remit. If you look at who can apply for legal aid or who comes under legal aid, it's nearly 80% of the population. And what has happened in the last 2 years, and of course it is guided by logic, but there is a price to pay for that logic. The money that is available, which is very little, 200 crores, plus another 200 for the newly minted Legal Defense Council, they have chosen to target and to upskill legal defense councils, jail clinics, lok adalats, mediation, and under trial review committees. Okay, these are the things that that they are pointedly looking at. But what has happened is that at the community level, the oh, who can't hear? Who can't hear? Who can't hear? Okay, okay. You mean I have to repeat everything? Oh, horrors! All right. So what has happened is paralegal. Can you hear? Okay, paralegal volunteers who are supposed to be on the ground helpers, legal assistants like an Anganwadi worker, like a health worker, etc. They have diminished by nearly 40%. Clinics, which were supposed to be one for every 6 or 10 villages, have now diminished so much that they are probably, if I divide it, one for every 160 villages. So generally what you're saying is that rural folk don't have access to justice. What is a right then becomes a lottery, a gamble. Do you get it? Do you not get it? So now one of the other things that we look at is diversity. Now I'm told that I have very little time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes? 5 minutes, okay. This isn't going to happen. Okay, I'll try. Sorry. So one of the things we look at is diversity, right? Diversity, we look at caste and we look at gender. You can see on board what it's like. Most of the diversity or the representativeness of OBCs, STs, SCs, and women are to be found in the lower echelons. The glass ceiling remains. By the time you get to the High Court, the ST, SC, OBC is at 18%, whereas at the subordinate courts, there is 44%. How caste plays out is against the against the quotas that each state has for itself, right? Some states are better than others in fulfilling these quotas. Others lag behind. So that is one of the metrics that we measure with. As far as gender is concerned, there is good news and there is bad news. The good news is, the bad news is that they're still all at the lower echelons, most of them. But the good news is that the pace of inclusion is increasing. There are more women's help desks. In the last decade, women in the police have doubled. There are now almost 40% subordinate courts judges who are women. And these will become the feeder for future High Court judges, right? So one of the things I always say, ladies and gentlemen, is why does this magic figure of 33%, which you will see in a minute, or you are seeing now, 33% is what the aspiration is for women to be in the police. And you will see from this little spiky thing that the rate at which women are being inducted into the police, the red ones show that from the last IJR, there is regression. The green ones show that from the last IJR, there has been some progress. Kindly look at the bottom one, the bottom red one, which is Tripura. It will take only 222 years to get to 33%. Jharkhand will take much less time, 175 years. So all of you who are looking at AI to increase your life and technology, you might be in the police somewhere in this time. But there are two states which are doing well, and that is Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. They will take only about 3 years, right? So I always say, why 33%? Why not 50%? Why not parity? Why not more? But we seem to be stuck with the notion that 33% is all we can manage in our imaginations. And so let me go to the next slide. There is overrepresentation in one place. OBCs, STs, SCs, and the poor make up over just about under 70% of all the jail population. No problem with reservations there. There's always overrepresentation. Moving on. Now, this is what we come up with at the end of all our work and all our analysis. These are the India Justice Report rankings for 2025. The dark green states are the four southern states, which have always done well and continue to do well. They are always in the first 5 or 6. And the surprise mover is Chhattisgarh, which has come up to the 6th. Right at the bottom level, there is the Bihar, Rajasthan. You can read the numbers. You can read the names, and they are almost always at the bottom. And in the middle, you have the states that usually stay in the middle. They are struggling. They are trying to do their best, but there are legacy issues which keep them just where they are. One of the things that I noticed when we were looking at this work was that 20% of the population are in the top 5 states, lives in the top 5 states. The rest, 80%, if we don't count the northeastern states, they're the ones who get a much lower capacity for justice. So you've got 80% against 20%. Please go forward. So why do they lose? Why do they win? These are some of the common threads. If we look pillar by pillar, state by state, you will find some have done well in one pillar, but really failed in another. So, but if you look at it, it's generally these factors that factor into their positioning. Underinvestment, high vacancies, low pace of change, low utilization of police modernization, low legal aid reach and use. And the winners, higher investments, better gender caste diversity, better utilization of budgets, a reduction in judicial backlogs, and expanded legal aid and less prison overcrowding. And as I told you, everywhere that we have looked, there is some good practice. In the last, with the last Chief Justice of Orissa, he took the trouble he had a PIL in front of him, and he looked at our statistics, and the amicus looked at our statistics, and through his diligence and following through, he reduced the number of vacancies in the prisons. He increased the occupancy and increased even some of the budgeting around that. So please move to the next thing. Move to the next thing. I am not going to take you through the small states, except to say that Sikkim for the second time, third time or second time? Sikkim for the second time has come at the top. It's a small state, and they don't have the challenges that other states do. But Goa, which was number 1 in the first IJR in 2019, has now always remained at the bottom at 7. Going forward. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to skip this slide, except to say that the state human rights commissions are in so much neglect that they are almost ghost institutions. They really, I'm trying to, yeah. Yeah, so just to quickly go through this, they have very small budgets. Jharkhand has a budget of less than 2 crore for the whole year. 3 of them have no members at all. 4 of them have no chairperson. 3 of them have no investigating wing. Only 12 of them are fully staffed. Vacancies run at 75%. And Jharkhand has neither adjudicator nor investigators. So what are these What are these institutions for? What do they stand for? Are they even standing? They had less than 2 lakh, they had 1.5 lakh complaints, of which 80% were dismissed in limine. That is, the jurisdiction wasn't there, or they were civil cases, or they were some other kind of cases. And even of the 20% that they had to look at, they have a pendency of 50,000 cases. So what you really can't say that these people who were supposed to have boots on the ground and uh, and look after the human rights of in the states are actually able to do anything. But lest I leave you all sad and blue, there is improvement. This is a scorecard of improvement. And really, this is one of the things that we at the India Justice Report really look for and really encourages us to go forward. As Vale said, it's a question of hope. Bihar, which is lower in the table and does have major problems of finance and low GDP, etc., has improved more. Those states that started from a lower starting point seem to have improved better. But then some states like West Bengal, for instance, are down at the table and also have low improvement rates. Now, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, there is much more money than there was before in the system. Forensics are gaining a lot of attention, and technology is playing a far larger role. Gender inclusion is improving. Caste representation is improving. It's really very slow, but it is happening. And mediation is the great hope that if mediation takes off, then we will have a parallel area, a mechanism to declutter the courts. But it has to be nurtured. Without that, we're not going to have anything more. So, to the relief of my colleagues, I am now going to end. But I just want to say, no, wait. I am deserving, but wait. All right. We all know that there are problems. We all know that there are solutions. Those solutions have been on our books for years. We've got commissions of inquiry, we've got orders from information commissioners, we have orders from courts. They are widely accepted, nobody challenges them, but they are routinely ignored. The problem is sometimes so wicked that it overwhelms us and we don't know where to begin. We, as civil society, are part of the people. The problem is not going to fix itself, so we must try to fix it. The India Justice Report is one way of saying that here is an essential piece of knowledge, so that when people like us, like yourselves, are dialoguing with our governance, then we are dialoguing with knowledge. And the change has not come from within, so we must push from outside. The India Justice Report reminds us that we are not outsiders to our own governance. If we continue with the capacity as low as it is going to be a violation of our right to access justice. Justice can't be a gamble. It has to be a certainty. It must work for everybody, and it must work every day for everybody. Because if it doesn't, then nothing else will. Thank you. You can't scold me until the end.
Until the very end.
Until the very end.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing these very, very crucial findings with us. Now, for the formal release of the India Justice Report 2025, along with all the members present on the stage, may I also request other members of the IGR family, that is, members of our subgroup, some of them are present here, and the IGR team, along with our special guests today for the panel discussion, Dr. Anup Surendranath and Ms. Shubhra Gupta, to join us on the stage, please. We'll just have one formal picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Now, may I please request everyone on the stage as well to join the audience for the keynote address for the India Justice Report 2025 by Justice Madan Lokar. Sir has been our unwavering supporter, under whose guidance we have strengthened our mission and expanded our impact over the past 5 years. Welcome, sir, please.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. Before I say my piece, I want to congratulate Maya, Vale, and the entire team, all of you who are here, for an excellent report that they've come out with. It's very detailed. I've had occasion to have a look. It's very detailed, and in one sense, it is very positive also. So, congratulations to all of you, the steering committee, to everybody, for this excellent work. Now, I don't want to go into the details of the report. Maya has already done that, and you will get a copy of the report also. But there are a few things that I would like to share. You know, Maya began with saying, "What is justice? What is justice?" It's too soft. Okay, can you hear me at the back? Hmm? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, Maya began by saying, "What is justice? What is justice? We want justice," and so on. Now, you keep hearing this, every now and then on TV, somebody or the other comes and says, "We want justice," normally in cases of rape and murder. But what is the concept of justice? I don't want to go into it, but just to say that, in Nirbhay, for example, in the Nirbhay case, Nirbhay's mother was very clear that she wanted these people to be executed. That was justice for her. That's where the judiciary comes in. Then you have the RG car case from Kolkata. They also said we want justice. Eventually, some form of justice was given to them with the CBI investigating into the offense. And after the CBI gave its report and said that there is no conspiracy, they said justice has not been done. So investigation faltered, and that was their view that justice has not been done. So everybody has a different concept of what is justice, and when they say we want justice, you're not sure exactly what they want. But if you look at the India Justice Report in the context of justice, The four pillars that have been selected, namely legal aid, judiciary, the police, and prisons, it's the entire combination of all of them and how they function and whether you get justice if they all function properly. Now, unfortunately, when we look at some of the figures, some of the information that comes out of the IGR, there is, a gap somewhere or the other. In some states, there's a gap in legal aid. In some states, there's a gap in prisons. In some places, there's a gap in the judiciary. I think everywhere there's a gap in the judiciary. So really, you're not getting justice at the end of the day, and that is what I think frustrates people who are looking for justice. I'll just speak about a few of these pillars. The only thing that I want to mention before I get into the various pillars is that the purpose of the IGR is to point out, what are the deficiencies in some states and what are the strengths in some states. So it is really for the states, to look at the IGR and say that, well, we've not done particularly well in legal aid, for example, or we've not done particularly well in prisons, but we've done extremely well in police. We've done extremely well in the judiciary. So let us try and improve. So the IGR is not to criticize the states, but to give them the facts and figures and get them to try and improve. Now, unfortunately, between the last report of 2022 and the present one that has been released today, the only state that has done well is Andhra Pradesh. Now, there were, I think, 6 or 7. They've come to number 2. But all the other states have, made some marginal improvements or have remained static. And so, therefore, one gets the impression that the various pillars in the justice system are not being taken seriously by the states. And that is unfortunate. And that's why you have this problem where people say we want justice, but they don't get justice. Let's look at the go behind the figures that have been given to you about prisons. All right, what is the condition of the prisons? As far as the prisons are concerned, it's quite clear that there is severe overcrowding. The IGR mentions, for example, that there are at least 12 prisons across the country where the number of prisoners is 400% higher. That is to say that if the capacity of the jail is 100, there are actually 400 people over there. You can't function like that. How are you going to manage a prison which has got 4 times the capacity? Double the capacity is something like 180 or 190 prisons across the country. So we are talking about overcrowding, and this is a problem which has been there for a long time. It's not something which has happened now. It's been there for a long time. And again, that problem gets compounded by the fact that there are vacancies in the among the staff. Okay, so you have instances where people manage to get bullied and eventually they commit suicide in prisons. That's happened on quite a few occasions. Even recently, I think somebody had committed suicide, and you keep wondering that how is it that a person is able to commit suicide with all this? The reason is quite simple. The facilities are not there. There's nobody to look after them. The amount of money that is spent is negligible in terms of food and other facilities. And so you get this sort of an adverse reaction. Recently, a couple of days ago, the judgment from one of the English courts was released. India had moved an application for the extradition of Sanjay Bhandari. And the court looked into the application. The district court looked into it, and then the appellate court. I had occasion to study the judgment of the appellate court. And they say there were quite a few grounds. One of them, they said that there was no a case was made out by the government of India for extradition. For another one, they say that some facts are still not available, so we want to remand it to the district court. But they said there's no point remanding it to the district court because of our conclusion on ground 3 and 4. And ground 3 and 4 dealt with torture and conditions in the prisons. Now, they have gone through it in detail. They have mentioned several cases. They have mentioned the case of Christian Michel, who is in jail in India for the last so many years. Recently, he was granted bail. He said, I don't want bail. Why? If I get bail, there will be certain conditions that will be put on me. Instead, my total imprisonment, even if I am found guilty, will be over in about 4 or 5 months or 6 months. So I prefer to stay in jail for these 4 or 5, 6 months rather than subject myself to conditions in the bail. This is one case mentioned by them. Another case mentioned by them is that of some person called Jattar Johal. I think you might be knowing about him. I don't know. He died in jail. Okay. Circumstances of his death must have been investigated, but that was the condition in the jail that led to his murder. Tilu Tajpuria, murdered in Tihar. Video cameras, CCTVs, have taken pictures of the murder. Nothing has happened. The prison staff was just standing there watching. He got beaten up and he died. Ankit Gujar, a case of another person murdered in Tihar jail. The matter is pending in the Delhi High Court. Sukesh Chandrasekhar, we keep reading about him every once in a while. He keeps, he's got the prison staff, so to speak, in his pocket. So you have all these instances which have been documented in the judgment, and they have referred to the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, the report prepared by an independent agency, which says that this is the condition of the prisoners. One is torture. Second is the conditions that are there in the prison. And taking all this into consideration, bribes being given to the prison staff, no control over what is happening in the prisons, we feel, that's what the court said, we feel that sending Sanjay Bhandari to India so that he gets into jail is not a good idea. The government of India was asked to give assurances about the conditions. The assurances that were given were, kind of not very accurate, somewhat wishy-washy. And they said that, 4 times we've asked them to give assurances. We've not got any assurances. So that being the situation, we don't want to send him to India. Now, this one judgment is going to have a very, very serious impact, because here there is documentation about the conditions in prisons. Tihar is supposed to be one of the better prisons in the country. And if this is the condition in Tihar, you can imagine what the condition is in the other places. We've got more than, I think, 100 or 120 extradition requests in different parts of the world. This judgment is going to be very important for all these cases. So that's what, the IGR points out about prisons, prison conditions, and what is happening in prisons. And unless we wake up, we're just going to continue inviting trouble. Second, forensics. There is a small mention about forensics. It's not being gone into in great detail in the IJR, but forensics is very, very important. Today's Hindustan Times gives some details about Delhi. All right, not about the entire country, but about Delhi. They say that there are 20,000 requests that are pending in Delhi alone. You can imagine how many there are pending in the rest of the country. They're getting 200 requests every month. They're not able to deal with it. It could be cyber forensics. it could be bioforensics. So in a crime, you will have hair as a sample, DNA for DNA purposes, you will have blood as a sample, and it's not possible to analyze it for months together. Try and imagine, you go for a blood test to a pathologist. The pathologist takes your blood and says, I'll give you a report after 2 years. What's going to happen, to that blood sample? This is what is happening in Delhi. Today's Hindustan Times mentions this. So you have this, huge problem where forensics is very important, and now it has been there earlier also under the CRPC and the IPC, the earlier regime, that if the offence is punishable with imprisonment for more than 6 years, then forensics is compulsory. Now under the new 3 statutes, BNS, BNSS, it's been increased to 7 years, but that doesn't make a difference. The government is now trying to say that, listen, instead of going only to the government, laboratories, we'll authorize private laboratories to carry out these tests. Now, what is going to happen in these laboratories? You may have problems of, integrity. How are you going to check that? So, pushing the buck somewhere else, that we are doing a good job, we are spending money on forensics, but we are also giving authority to somebody else to do that, is not going to help in the long run. Unless you strengthen your own system, the problem is going to continue. Now these 200 samples that come every month, 20,000 samples which are pending, I don't know how many years it's going to take, and by that time the evidence will be lost, and persons who have perhaps committed a crime will just get away. Why? Because the forensics are missing. Police. Now Maya has mentioned about police, which is there's a shortfall. I think you said about 5 lakh or 80,000 or something you said. The sanctioned strength is 197 policemen for 1 lakh people. We have at the moment 155 per 1 lakh. So there's a shortfall of 42. The internationally accepted standard, and Miran will confirm it, is 222. 222 per 1 lakh. We are not even 197, which is the sanction strength. We are 155. And if you take the internationally accepted strength, then according to me, the number of the shortfall that you have is something like 10 lakh policemen. Now that's a huge amount, and then you're talking about law and order. Half these people are in any case busy on VIP duties and all that. What happens to the common man? What happens to the crimes that are committed on a daily basis in cities, in the rural areas, far-flung areas where there are hardly any police officers? What happens? How is the investigation ever going to take place? How is anybody ever going to get justice? So, these are problems which have been pointed out by IJR. Training, hardly any money is spent on training. I think it's roughly works out to about 1% or 1.5%. West Bengal, 125 rupees is the amount that is being spent on training in a year. So, where is it going to lead? Then you have custodial deaths. That has also been mentioned in the IJR, something like 1,237 custodial deaths pending for more than 1 year. What is the investigation being done? Is anybody ever going to be found guilty for that? What about encounter killings? They just keep happening every now and then. You see somebody. Recently, there was one person who was being taken to Bihar by 8 policemen. He was unarmed, 8 policemen were armed. And according to these 8 policemen, he attacked them. So in self-defense, they fired at him and killed him. Encounter killings, but what's going to happen? Nothing is going to happen. All that will be said is that, this person deserved to die. Why? Because he had committed a rape and murder. Good for him. But is that a part of the rule of law, that we are trying to foster? Is that a part of our constitution? That just because you can't do your work properly, you can't deliver justice, you find some shortcut method so that, the problem is taken care of. So these are some of the problems which have been highlighted in the IJR. Next pillar is the judiciary. Now that's in a pretty bad shape, let me tell you. The IJR mentions, for example, that the number of vacancies in the lower judiciary or the district judiciary is something like 33%. In the high courts, it is 21%. The fact of the matter is that, yes, it is 21% or 22%. The fact of the matter is that sometime back, the strength of High Court judges was increased by 25% across the board. For no rhyme or reason, it was 25%. So Delhi High Court, for example, had a sanctioned strength of 48. It was increased by 25%. It is now 60. During a recent conference held in February this year in Delhi, which was attended by Chief Justices, I was informed that there is not a single high court where the number of judges was equal to the sanctioned strength before the 25% increase. So Delhi High Court never had 48 judges, but increased to 60. If they don't have 48, where are they going to get 60 from? Similarly, other high courts, you had mentioned about Allahabad, 50%. There also, I don't know what the original sanction strength was, but those were not filled up. And there was an increase of another 25%, which in Allahabad could mean anything between 25 and 30 judges. So really, it's a game that is being played. Oh, we've got enough judges. Okay, you may have enough judges, but you don't have. You may have enough vacancies, but you don't have enough judges. So where is justice going to come from? You have a report given by the Law Commission, 120th report that was given in 1987. They said that we must have 50 judges per million. Okay, that was a recommendation made in 1987. We are now, almost 40 years down the line. At that time, I had tried to check up the population, and I found that given the population at that point of time in 1987, we needed 40,000 judges. Today, the population is 1.4 billion. And if you take 50 per million, you're going to need 70,000 judges. Now, out of 40,000, which was mentioned in 1987, the IJR tells us that we have in place 21,000. The number of sanctioned vacancies is 25,000. So even the sanctioned vacancies have not been filled up. Forget about what the Law Commission said 40 years ago. Today, it has almost doubled. From 40,000, it has gone up to 70,000. There's no way that you're going to get so many people. That's one aspect. The second aspect is the staff for these judges. Recently, some courts were set up, and somehow or the other, the Department of Justice came to the conclusion that you need 7 or 8 persons per judge. So if you're talking about 70,000 judges, multiply that by 7, you're going to have 4.5 lakhs, 5 lakh staff that you have to recruit. Where are you going to get all these people from? So unless there is this, will to do something about it, the problem is going to continue. The fifth IGR will have the same figures. The sixth one will also have the same figures. Maya had mentioned about alternatives, mediation, plea bargaining, criminal justice not being used. Mediation is just kind of wishy-washy. Then you have Gram Nyayalas. It was an idea in 2009. It was an idea to tell people that, listen, you don't have to go to the district headquarters, you don't have to go to the High Court, you don't have to go to the Supreme Court. You just go to your Gram Nyayalaya, which is next to your house, and your legal problems will be taken care of. 2009 was the law, or maybe 2006, whatever. We are now 15 years down the line, completely dysfunctional. There are hardly about 40 or 50 Gram Nyayalayas across the country, whereas there should be thousands of them, if not lakhs. Those that were, set up with the, fervor and enthusiasm, we are going to have Gram Nyayalayas, 400 of them or 450 of them, most of them are closed, and only, like I said, 40, 50 of them are functioning. Where are these people going to get justice from? Everybody can't come to the High Court. Everybody can't come to the Supreme Court. People find it difficult to even go to the district headquarters. But we have this problem. Now, legal aid is another pillar that Maya had spoken about. I can tell you that when I was in charge of the Supreme Court Legal Services Committee, I had asked Anup Surendranath, you're here? Yeah. When he was in NLU Delhi to conduct a social audit of the Supreme Court Legal Services Committee. And you'll be shocked to know that what came out was that persons had approached convicts who had been given a life sentence, which is 14 years. They had approached the Supreme Court for filing an appeal in the Supreme Court, for filing an SLP in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court Legal Services Committee had not acted on it for 10 years. When we got all this information, we wrote to everybody, do you want us to continue with your case? Out of about 3,000, only 700 people said, yeah, we want to continue with our case. So 2,300 said, no, we're not interested. We don't want your services. Out of those 700 people, half of them said that, yeah, we want to continue with our case, but we've already engaged private lawyers. So we don't need you. This is the condition, and this was 2 reports were given by Anup. The same thing. Paralegal volunteers, which were supposed to, go from house to house, virtually from house to house. There are hardly something like 5% or something, some very nominal number that's been mentioned in the IGR. Where are these people going to get justice? You talk about persons being, not legally literate. They may be literate otherwise, but not legally. The paralegal volunteers are supposed to assist them, but they're not there. So, all that I want to say in conclusion is that we have very serious problems. And the IGR points out to some of them. There are some good things that are happening. Women are joining the judiciary, but they too also have problems. In Delhi, it's okay. You can go from Tisawari to Karkaduma to Saket to Dwarka and all that. But what about the states? You're in Maharashtra. For 3 years, you're posted in Mumbai. For 3 years, you're posted somewhere else. You've got a family. You've got kids. You go to some other district for 3 years, then you go to a third district for 3 years. So they have their problems as well in the states. Are we looking into those? So it's nice to say that yes, women are joining the judiciary, but they have problems which I'm afraid are not being looked after. But having said all this, the idea is that you go through the facts and figures of the IJR and see what you can do. How can you improve the system? You have all the data over there. You have all the information over there. You just have to implement the laws. You have to enforce the laws. And I think things will be all right. But there has to be this will to do it. And I'm afraid that will is lacking. Why it is lacking, where it is lacking, whether it's the government, that does not want to spend money. There is enough money going around, by the way, plenty of money going around, but not being spent. I know, as a matter of fact, 13th Finance Commission, 5,000 crore was given, 980 crore was spent. 14th Finance Commission doubled it to 10,000 crores. Now, if the judiciary could not spend 5,000 crores, how do you expect them to spend 10,000 crores? So money is available. The point that I want to make is money is available. But budgeting is a different ballgame altogether. Utilization of the funds is a different ballgame altogether. So we have to have that will to do something, and I'm sure with the assistance of IGR, things can change. One last word, which I would just make a request to Maya and her team. Look at the rights of children. We have juvenile justice boards in a bad shape. Children are not getting justice. Sorry. Yeah. We've all been talking about adults, but children are the ones who are suffering. And I know that in Delhi, the kind of conditions that are there in the homes is as bad, if not worse, than Tihar. So children who are 15 years old, 16 years old, 14 years old are undergoing the same problems that adults in Tihar are undergoing, if not worse. Have a look at that. Have a look at tribunals. That's also a part of justice. We have so many tribunals. Are they giving justice? You have Central Administrative Tribunal. You have this DRT, what is it called? Debt Recovery Tribunal. You have Consumer Forum. You have this commercial tribunals. Are they giving justice? NGT, orders are being flouted on a daily basis. Are they giving justice? So my request is, I know it's a tough ask, but please think about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think your address kind of captured the heart of the IJR. I think it's a compelling reminder of why we do this work and why we continue to do this work. And just taking on from what sir said, we are actually in the process of doing a study on the work and on the functioning of the juvenile justice system and that of consumer commissions, and they'll be out very soon in the month of June and July. Now, for the last but definitely not the least session of the evening, we have a panel discussion on justice narratives in the Indian popular culture, for which I would like to invite on stage Dr. Anup Surendranath, Executive Director of the Square Circle Clinic at Narsar, Hyderabad, Ms. Shubha Gupta, renowned film critic and author, and Valay Singh, who will be moderating this panel discussion.
Jump straight into this session with a short video The spirit of the session is to amplify public demand for justice delivery, and we can't do it only through data. So we want to bring more people into the circle. Therefore, Nayanika, can we just start with?
For decades, movies have shown us what justice looks like, or at least what they think it looks like. Heroic cops, courtroom dramas, jailbreaks, and barely a whisper about legal aid. The cop is often the hero, larger than life, delivering justice with his fists.
आवड़े जब तक अपन लोग ठोकेंगे नहीं तब तक कुछ बदलेगा नहीं ना चलो सीसीटीवी फुटेज निकालो और आईजी साहब को फोन लगा बोल दे कि सदाशिव और गौरव रानडे का मीरामार पुलिस स्टेशन में एनकाउंटर
ഗണ്ണുണ്ടല്ലോ ഒരു അത്യാവശ്യത്തിന് തീരെ നിവൃത്തിയില്ലാതെ വരുമ്പോ എടുത്ത് ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ തന്നെയാ തന്നിരിക്കുന്നത് ഒരു വിഷമവും വിചാരിക്കണ്ട അവനവന്റെ തടിയേക്കാൾ വലുതല്ല കണ്ടവന്റെ ജീവൻ
मोटे वाले उस तरफ पतले वाले इस तरफ और फिट वाले मेरे पीछे क्या हो गया पुलिस फोर्स को
But some films flip the lens.
तुम क्या हो? मैं कास्ट हूँ सर। कास्ट क्या होता है? सर हम डिफरेंट होते हैं, हम लोग 4 वनडों में नहीं आते।
ഗുണ്ടകൾക്ക് പോലും കൊട്ടേഷൻ എടുക്കാനും എടുക്കാതിരിക്കാനുള്ള സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യമുണ്ട് നമുക്കതില്ല.
In real life, justice is slow and complicated. But in Bollywood, it's a full-blown drama stage. And not to forget,
तारीख पर तारीख मिलती रही है, लेकिन इंसाफ नहीं मिला मिलोड, इंसाफ नहीं मिला, मिली है तो सिर्फ ये तारीख.
but then there are films like Court or Pink, quiet, unsettling, and painfully real.
इमोशनल बयानबाजी की गुंजाइश नहीं होती. लॉयर शुड स्टिक टू द फैक्ट्स.
അങ്ങനെ ചൂടാവണ്ടോ ശുക്ർ വക്കീലെ, നീ അങ്ങനെ എന്തെല്ലാം ബഗട് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്?
This will not be heard today.
Why, sir?
You are coming wearing sleeveless top to the court hearing. नहीं, against the rules आते नहीं.
डीपी, इस बारे में क्या कहोगे? अब मैं क्या कहूं माय लॉर्ड? I have nothing to say.
And prisons are a mix of everything. Jailers dancing with inmates, and the movies and shows that show overcrowding of prisons.
जेल तो सरकार.
So yeah, over the years, cinema has shown us the justice system in varied shades.
20 वर्ष डांबाने संपवा मॅटर पण त्याच गोष्टी तेच चेहरे
போலீஸ் வருவா? போலீஸா? அவங்க எதுக்கு? போலீஸ் கோர்ட்டுனா அவங்களுக்கு தேவை தெளிவு, ரேகை, சாட்சி. எங்களுக்கு தேவை கொஞ்சம் தண்ணி, அதை நாங்க பார்த்துப்போம்.
1 വർഷം ഞാൻ അവർ വേട്ടപ്പെട്ടിയായിട്ട് ഓടിയിരുന്നല്ലേ, ഞാൻ എനിക്ക് വേണ്ടിട്ട് തെണ്ടി തെരഞ്ഞു ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല. ഞാൻ ഓക്കെ ആവും.
എതിർത്ത് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിന് ഒന്നും ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ലെന്ന് എനിക്കറിയാലോ. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് മീഡിയ ഇത്രയും നെഗറ്റീവ് ഇമേജ് നിങ്ങളുടെ ഈ കേസിൽ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നതിന് ഇന്ന് ഇലക്ഷൻ നടക്കുന്ന സാഹചര്യത്തിൽ ഗവൺമെന്റിൽ നിന്ന് മറ്റൊന്നും പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കാനും പറ്റില്ല.
What the fuck is going on here? Flow boy, ഞാൻ നിർത്തുന്നു. That's all.
But maybe there's space for more stories, ones that don't just imagine justice, but actually look at how it works, or doesn't.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for making the time. We are at 7:45. We are running about 15 minutes behind schedule. I know everyone has commitments and dinners and all of that. So we'll cut short a little bit, but what we will try to do is have a very good audience engagement, and I will exercise the right who will get to speak, because I know the usual suspects and I'm not going to go to them. Certainly not. So starting with you, Shubhra, is there more space for stories?
Vale, thank you very much for having me here. Can you hear me at the back?
Press the button.
It's showing green. Okay. Hi, can you hear me at the back? Okay, thanks for having me, and I would like to say that that sounded completely unjust for something like that when we are talking about justice. So please go ahead and let the people talk. But in terms of the space for more stories, for sure. But having said that, we have to take a step back and see what mainstream cinema or mainstream popular culture, what does it demand of the filmmaker, and what or how do we shape it as viewers? Because it's a compact between two people and two kinds of forces, where one is driven by profit and the other is the thing that we have been fed for the last 50 years to look at as entertainment, right? So when you look at an entertaining film or an entertaining web series now, which is more and more the case, we are looking at broad brushstrokes. We are looking at no subtleties. We are looking at no confusions. We are looking to be told to how to feel about certain things. We are being told that, look, this is a good thing or a bad thing. We are not, as children or as young adults, told how to function critically or to use our own metrics, where you can start judging something. So when you have an entertainment system trying to feed this, you are looking at reductiveness, and which is exactly what happens in our movies. If you start from something like the early 70s, when the pre-emergency, when social injustice was so highly in the air. I think some of us may remember that time. Mohan Joshi Hazir Ho, if you remember that film, it was about an older couple that goes to court and keeps going to court because they have two lawyers played by Nasiruddin Shah and Satish Shah, who are both insistent that it will never come to court. It will, that Tariq pe Tariq, that Sunny Deol's famous line, is exactly what it pertains to. But if you try making that film today, you'll be laughed out of court. No one wants to watch anything that is slow. I'm using the word advisedly, slow. Nobody wants to look at things which are let's say in the middle. They want something that a good cop, like a Zanjeer, somebody who will never smile. The Vijay and Zanjeer never cracks a smile. He's just this stern guy, and who's conflicted cop, who's been, who has carrying trauma from his childhood, and sort of taking revenge on his enemies. Or the other one is the jokey cop, the guy who will give us the comic relief. The same with the lawyers. Either you have a very sort of straight-laced lawyer or a judge, or you will have people who will make you laugh. In between is the difficult space, which is exactly what mainstream cinema doesn't really address, because there lies confusion, there lies a viewer who might be alienated by this entire space of not being told what to think, what to feel, and they will leave that theater saying, "Kya picture thi ye?" So, in all of these things, what we are missing out is nuance. We are missing out on detailing. We are missing out on processes. There are police procedurals in our films, have always been, but they're always very, it's like the quickest cut to the chase. Let's do the encounter. Let's have the endorphins, let's have adrenaline rushing. Let's have fists, let's have guns, because that's literally what gives you virality, that gives you the kind of the meme worthiness that people are now looking for. It gives you that kind of rush, which a film like Court, which in my opinion is absolutely one of the best things I've seen in the last so many years on the criminal justice system, as well as the courts. It's absolutely fantastic. How many people here have actually seen the film? Okay, so I'm speaking to the converted. I might still have 7 or 8 people, but this is a film that I believe should have been shown. It's like should be made absolutely like imperative viewing for all of us. Last week, I'll just finish with last week and the week before last, I saw a film. I've seen 3 or 4 films. One in which Sunny Deol plays, he's an army man and he delivers justice. And there are a group of police women who have been, they've been savaged by a group of savages, and their vardis are out. So there's all this dialoguing about vardis, which is very important in a mainstream film. Nothing beyond it, because dialoguing is important, but not the process behind it. That's really, and a film that I saw, it's called Punjab 95, which is probably never going to see the light of day because of the police brutality that it shows. I'm assuming that that is the case, because it comes so close to realism that it is very hard to watch. And I also, from what I've heard over the so many years, that what actually goes on in a prison or in a police cell is something so way beyond even our imagination. That's something that comes this close and we get revulsed. Nobody in the mainstream really wants to take you there.
No, that's true. But I think what you're saying is that you can either have a very good, honest film that shows reality how it is, or you can have a commercial blockbuster, and there's no middle ground. But Anup, you can respond to Shubhra or any other thoughts. I want to ask you and cut to the chase that what is it that we here on the other side need to keep in mind about communicating better our own concerns? We can do these press releases and press launches, but why is it that the communication industry is not influenced by people from our sector? And you've thought about that before, so.
Thanks, Vale, and congratulations to all of you on the report. And Shubhra, thank you for all the work, for making sense of what happens in our films on a very regular basis. So thank you for all the writing that you do. So a large part of the work that I do with my colleagues is defending prisoners on death row, right? And is defending prisoners on death row, and the kind of cases that come to us are a large number of our people that we represent are extremely poor and sentenced to death for rape and murder of children and sexual violence. So, I mean, I come from a perspective where we yearn for that nuance, where nuance is just so difficult, both inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom, and it's just shocking the kind of evidence that is there in these cases and what forms the basis for convictions. But all of that aside, just responding to Vale's question, and to cut to the chase, I think organizations like ours and efforts like ours do a terrible job at telling stories, right? We've just not invested enough intellectually and strategically of thinking about how to convert our work into storytelling that can be consumed. And I think I can't speak to the entertainment industry and the show business. I can speak for what I have seen in my line of work and organizations that we are familiar with in the space. Of course, there's a certain reality to that. Good communications takes a good amount of money. It's not just about putting out one tweet or one reel on Instagram. But I think we all do such incredible work, and we have such access to such incredible stories. And all of us, I mean, but we just haven't thought about, and there is a lot of reasons to that. It's not to blame ourselves or blame anyone. There are very good systemic structural reasons why we don't convert that into more publicly consumable stories. One of those reasons is that we just haven't prioritized them, right? And I think there is a certain intellectualism that is counterproductive, and I can speak for our own efforts in telling stories of our own clients who are innocent or who were children in conflict with law when they were arrested 25 years ago and are subsequently released much later. There is a certain reluctance in wanting to tell the entertaining story, right? There is a certain push constantly for wanting more and more and more nuance, and that makes you difficult to work with, right? When storytellers want to work with you and then they reach out, they hear all these cases that we're doing, we ourselves, I think it's a long, painful realization, and it is a painful realization, that our push for nuance, our push for detail, and our reluctance to work with people who want to convert it into some sort of engaging, entertaining story is a very, very serious barrier. That is not to say that that's the only barrier, right? But it is a serious barrier. And I think that reflection and that acknowledgement and how we, of course, in this era of shrinking funding for this kind of work, especially in the criminal justice system, there is no way organizations can suddenly put out some fabulous short film or a documentary. That's a reality of the sector. That's not going to happen. And in that reality, there has to be a more proactive willingness to collaborate with storytellers. And what are the terms of that collaboration? I think it is us having to go halfway, right? And I would say that sort of responding to some points that Shubha made, that I think the story of the reality of telling justice stories, of course, a complicated one for every Singham or the cop verse that you will know from Rohit Shetty. There is a Kora on the other side, or there's a Adsatya on the other side, right? That tells you there is a certain set of films that you can imagine that are about the reality of the cops, right? And for the longest time, I didn't watch season 2 of Delhi Crime. I'm not sure how many of you watched it, right? Given our own involvement in that case and whatever, I really was reluctant to watch. But I thought the most striking, for those of you who watched Delhi Crime, it's on the Delhi gang rape and the investigation and of that case. For me, it was so beautifully done about the struggles of the cops in those cases, right? And the individual police officers, the constables, their lives. And I thought it was quite well done. And even though as someone who takes a position against the death penalty, and there's a certain politics to that show as well, but I thought this was extremely well done. And when Valay asked me to, and I think we need to ask, why is it that we need to tell these stories? Right? Why should we engage with popular media or popular entertainment? Why can't we just keep doing our work on data and keep pushing the narrative that criminal justice reform and criminal justice engagement needs to be evidence-based, and keep pushing government officials or judges or courts saying, look at more data, we need to invest in generating more data, both qualitative and quantitative. Why do we even need to go down this path, right? And I think that's the fundamental question to ask. And for me, it's a very, when you ask me to speak on this, I remember watching this Malayalam film involving the current lone BJP MP from Thrissur in Kerala, right? Suresh Gopi. Every time I used to go for my summer vacations to Kerala, there is this film called Commissioner, right? I know many of you have seen Commissioner Suresh Gopi is this IPS officer, right? And the kind of macho cop that is to an adolescent boy. That was my life goal, right? To become that IPS officer. And Suresh Gopi is raging against the system. He's raging against corrupt politicians. He's raging against corrupt senior IPS officers, right? And Suresh Gopi at the end catches this really corrupt politician and he says, I am not going to leave you to the law, right? I cannot leave you to the law because if I leave you to the law, you will escape the clutches of the law, and burns this guy to death, right? In a very dramatic last scene. And as a young boy, that was so powerful, right? It was so influential, saying, wow, here is the guy raging against the machine, right? And getting justice. And this is what I want to do. Thankfully, education intervened in the subsequent years, right? And somebody decided it was worth teaching us these things in law school, right? That it might not be the right way to think about these things. But I think there's a tremendous influence, and especially in criminal justice, and for me, answering that question myself, in criminal justice, where so much of what courts are willing to do and what politicians are willing to do and what bureaucrats are willing to do or not, there is a very serious public element to this conversation. And that public conversation is very, very sharp, whether we like it or not. Be it on prison reform, legal reform, criminalization, what we should criminalize, how much we should punish. There is a very serious, sharp public element to this. And unless we find ways to blunt that and effectively blunt that, we can do all the research we want and we can do all the advocacy that we want. There will always be that resort to the people are actually saying, let's hang all rapists, right? And that will be and unless we, and it's not to say that we can use popular media to completely change opinion and everybody will be suddenly enlightened in 1 decade. That's not the idea. But there is a need to blunt the sharpness of the conversation around criminal justice. And this is doing this well, much better than most of what we have seen is the way there, right?
Do you mean the video?
I am.
Before you take that on, and I'm mindful that we have to go to the audience, what I'm saying is that the encounter is justified because the process is going to take too long to complete. This is the reason for encounter cops, and we perhaps get it somewhere. But what I may be completely off the point that you wanted to make, but as a former member of the Film Certification Board in some capacity, why are misrepresentations of the justice system, the justice process, why is that even allowed? Was there any discussion? Why can't we sensitize members of these bodies and so on? Because what you're essentially doing is promoting blatant impunity and violence. So how is that allowed when other things are not allowed?
Right. Before I take that one on, I have to say that I really enjoyed your, so much of your. I mean, I won't say presentation, but the way you framed your argument was absolutely great. The only thing I would be very, very wary of saying that let's not get enough nuance in there, because there is so much temptation to not have any guardrails at all. Like, you go from one to the other, you swing from two extremes. And it's also, well, your earlier point about mainstream blockbusters as opposed to the independent, edgy, darker films. There have been fantastic mainstream films which have been really, really hewn as close to the bone as they can. I will, of course, Ardha Satya's, Anant Velankar's, Om Puri's character, and that whole scene of that torture is one which I've never forgotten. I mean, it was back in the 80s, early 80s. This one, then there was in between a middling film called Gardish, in which Amrish Puri and Akshay have a conversation about Constable. Yeah, no, I'm just so that I can very quickly bring it up to the point. Also, your question about so there is, and then up the chappan. I mean, talking about Shimit, I mean, you're talking about encounters. You have that, you have a cop who will say he actually has that as a slogan कि अभी तक इतने मारे हैं और बताओ कितने मार सकते हैं. It's like that much is a challenge, and that is really why that Nana Patekar's cop is so sort of valorized in a manner of speaking. But to your other point, where the CBFC or the board and my interventions or our interventions, let's say, to educate the members of the people who actually certify films was something of a lost cause, because the people who actually look at these films are pretty much they're supposed to be from all walks of life, which they are, but they come to this without really having any background in the arts or having the way you look at cinema, the way you parse it, the way you look beyond the obvious, none of that. So we, during our term, which was about 10 years back now, we tried actually to put in, meetings with the people in various states. And it happened about, maybe we did 2, and then of course our term, I mean, there were things that happened and that thing got derailed. More, not so much because there was no money, but because there was a great push against this from within, because no one really wanted not educated so much as people who really knew what they were talking about. It was more like your local government MP or an MLA doing you a favor, saying is committee par aa jao. So what you would get is a gadi, and with that, the Ashoka symbol on your card. That's what it was meant for. So we tried actually very hard to switch that thing around so that there would be more awareness, let's say, of the issues that were being dealt with. So we started from something so basic to get to the point that you're talking about is actually absolutely ideal. But I think it's a great idea, which if this board can actually take up, it will happen. And I will also leave us with one other thing, that we as audience, we have the power. We forget that we have the power. We are the ones who are buying those tickets. We are going to book my show. We are going to the windows. We are clicking on those things. If we decide that we are not going to see this stuff, they as in the people who make these movies, will dial back so fast that it will be like you will not even believe it. So all of this is great. I mean, I'm not saying that there should not be multiple conversations happening at all levels across all stakeholders, but that is something that we need to understand, and we always forget this. We have the power.
2 quick takes and we go to the audience. One is that why are my feelings not put on the same pedestal as the feelings of those who get hurt by historical representations of historical facts? So if my feelings are also hurt by the police being shown in a certain way, or a community being shown in a certain way, why are the courts not entertaining them at equally? Or the lawyers in the room, maybe this is something we explore. The second quick take is that very simple. We should watch violent movies from other countries, and we should just boycott our own country movies that are violent. And we can go to questions after Anu's quick response.
No, just to quickly respond to Vale, I'd rather not have the government or anybody tell me that I cannot watch it because it is hurting somebody's sentiment, right? In the sense that I don't think we should go down a framework of if my sentiments are hurt about preposterous representations of the police or harmful representations of the police, I don't think that should be a basis for censorship or banning, just as hurting of religious sentiments should not. So going down, that is a rabbit hole I don't think we should go down at all, in terms of saying content-based judgment on whose sentiment is. I'd rather have Rohit Shetty make what I might consider the cop verse, right? But I think goes back to what Shubha is saying, that there has to be enough impetus for the counter also, right? I'd rather watch a court be as popular, and it is quite surprising the low numbers of people who put up their hands in an audience like this who have not watched court, right? I can only imagine what has happened to court in audiences outside this room, right? And on the cop, and again, all cop representations are not the same. There is a Jai Bhim or there is a Visaranai, we only focus on the problem. Okay.
But
Yeah.
there you have the nuance.
Nuance.
You couldn't help it. You couldn't resist it.
Yeah.
You brought the nuance. So shall we go?
No, no, again, just to, my argument is not of completely ruling out nuance. I think we prioritize nuance and hold on to it a bit too long and too much. Right? Yeah.
There is a response from your second row. Just wait for the mic. Only one request, ma'am. Please keep it brief, so we can get as many voices as possible.
Right. I'm Madhu from Partners for Law and Development. And I think when we're talking about justice, I mean, one aspect of the justice story is whether the criminal justice system has resources and capacities, which is what the report is talking about. The other aspect is really, do we even know enough about what's happening in the system to be able to tell stories? One of the most appalling things is that the courts do not allow research to be carried out internally to observe what are the trends and what is unfolding in terms of storytelling. So when we do, say, one time collaborate with the courts to do rape trial study, we have a whole conversation, false case, real case, false case, real case. And these may well be cases that are being prosecuted because of parental pressure. But we don't ever get to that real story because it's trapped within a false and a true. So actually this justice system or the legal system is not allowing the stories to come out. And so we peddle very flat narratives that serve our politics. And likewise, the commercial storytellers do their job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just one more.
Yeah. I wanted to just respond.
Hi. Very interesting conversation and lots of thoughts. But just to quickly come to the point, personally, I would much prefer a absolutely bizarre film being made on justice, like something like Sholay, where, the jailer is talking about Asrani's role, where we all know that this is humbug. I have a greater problem with films which are supposed to be doing a serious job, and then it's full of fallacies. And this is particularly happening, I'm seeing in OTT made reality kind of so-called documentary and style web series that are being made. And we now have, before every movie that's been, web series being made on something to do with justice, I've been approached many times by the research team and spent hours talking to them. And at the end of it, when I see what's come out, I'm very happy that my name is not there on the credits. Because it is a completely a story that is, and I've asked them that why do you do this, and they said that the OTT owners, they want a certain kind of picture to be shown, and the kind of nuances that you're talking about is just not possible. I really agree with Anup that we have to make an attempt to go half the way, and I'm like the kind of stories that we have in our work, they will be bestsellers. The problem is we don't have the time or the inclination or the skill to write it out in a manner that can be sold and then somebody would like to make. One last point, I think I liked Black Warrant. It was a fairly faithful representation of what goes on inside our prisons, and yet the sensitivity of the jailer came across very well. So these are just some random thoughts.
Yeah. Can I okay. I just like to respond very quickly to, not really respond, but like a comment to what you were just saying. I think the flat narratives aspect of what you were saying really is the key to all storytelling. Pretty much, if you flatten everything, then you are only going to get binaries, which is what I had started my argument with. That this is something that we understand as pillars of mainstream storytelling. It's either good or bad. It's black or white. You do not want shades of gray. So completely agree with what you were saying. And I'm very curious, which was the web series that you have an NDA in place? You can't talk about it. Okay, so Black Warrant, so Black Warrant really I did, but that's it's obvious because you had the jailer of the Har at that time who was a consulting, and also the journalist who covered so many of those cases were where they were sort of intimately involved with that whole this thing. So I would say yes, it had to be. Otherwise, and Vikramaditya Motwane, the director, has some kind of a sensitivity barometer, let's say, which is more than anyone, I mean, most people in the industry right now. Yeah, the engagement is not a problem. It's more like brand is endorsements. If you're going to be nuanced, you're not going to get any brands coming to you, right? And that literally is the end. What are you enacting for? Not for the glory of it, but because you want to make the maximum amount of money. So I think that's. Sorry, I was facing you because.
We'll start wrapping up. So keep it short.
Hi, my name is Rohit. I run a not-for-profit called Awaz Leadership Labs. I work closely with law students, and one of the things which is happening is in the law schools is specifically crisis of learning, and everything we are intellectualizing. So I ask a question to you: where is the play in the education? Where is the joy? What kind of how we can use art to democratize the justice systems in law schools personally? Yeah.
That's why I switched jobs. Yeah, do I answer? Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is that crisis, particularly in the lawyers that we are creating, and I can speak only to the National Law University ecosystem because that's what I'm familiar with. The alienation is intensifying year on year, right? And there is, and I think the kind of exposure that students are getting to these kinds of justice issues is increasingly just an intellectualized version. Of course, that's important, but what they are not getting, and I think reflecting back from my time as a student in almost 13 years of teaching now, the exposure that students are getting to these experiences is just not happening. And one can think about the various reasons, structural reasons as to what is happening to legal pedagogy in law schools, why students are getting alienated, what is the role of the increasing fee structure, what are students interested in. So there is that, we are creating a generation of, for a lack of a better phrase, elite lawyers who don't have that exposure even during, irrespective of whatever they go on to do. I don't, as a teacher, obviously since you can't force people to go and intern anywhere, and you shouldn't, films have really been a very powerful way of getting them to get them to reflect suddenly on the intensity that hits them. So when I used to teach first years legal methods, one film that I used to always show was All Rise for Your Honor. It's a documentary. It's freely available on YouTube. Please see it, right? It's so well done, even if it's a documentary, and the kind of cases they follow and how Smith Khanna presents those cases. And I think it drives home such a powerful message to students that, and I think what do you want to drive? That there is a distinction between law and justice, right? That's the primary message you want to drive to a law student. And how do you do it? And I think films are a great way to do that.
I absolutely agree, and I think that part of what our cultural DNA, it becomes the lines that we have grown up with. I mean, Sunny Deol did that "2.5 Kilo Ka Haath" in the early 90s. Last week, he made a film in which he again he's self-referential about his own, he did the myth that he created for himself. the power of that dialogue and how what you can do with it, it is absolutely what we can harness as people who work with media. And I really do believe that there should be, like, from Do Aankhein Bara Haath, which was a 1950s V Shantaram film, to now there have been so many brilliant mainstream films which show both with the police and the judiciary in, let's say, in a phrase that is so common these days, in good light, let's say. Okay, and let's also create one bad light ones and present it to, your students or your, the people at large, and let's have a larger conversation around it. What would you like, what would we like to be seeing, what do we want to see on our screens? I think ultimately it all comes down to that.
Yes, thank you both. While the cultural representation of justice is extremely important, justice sells, law doesn't. The challenge remains that how do we, we can maybe influence law students, but as things stand, they're not even taught enough about their future workplace. So actually, it's quite bleak, the ecosystem of law schools. They have no idea what they're entering after 5 years of education. They have no clue at all, and therefore, a lot of them do not do litigation anymore. But I think we will not digress from our topic. The intention was simply this: the India Justice Report uses something called ranking to assess a very complex set of systems. It is a conscious choice to, for lack of a better word, dumb it down. And this conversation is only the first in, we hope, would be many conversations with many different sorts of people. And we also have a long way to go in having these conversations. So therefore, if no hands are being raised, I think it's a good point to end this evening. I would like Nayanika to just quickly give a very quick vote of thanks to all of you who have stayed and all of you who could not make it for the launch of the IGR 2025.
Good evening, everyone. As we come to the close of this event, it's my greatest privilege to express our gratitude to everyone who's made today's evening a success. First and foremost, our deepest and sincerest appreciation to Madan Lokur sir for being here today and for his unwavering support and time over the years. We are immensely thankful to our steering committee who have stood by us, and we've benefited enormously from their experience and their advice. A huge thank you to our guests, Anup sir and Shubhra Gupta ma'am, for their thought-provoking insights and meaningful conversation, the first of many, I hope, and on two of my favorite subjects, actually. Our gratitude also towards our subgroup members, Mr. Pancho and the members of PACTA, whose contribution and time for research, writing, and review is what has built this India Justice Report. Our data partners at How India Lives for working with us side by side, and for Frappe for designing and upgrading our website. Most importantly, a very huge special thank you to my core team, our core team, and our leaders, Maya and Vale. They hold us to the highest standards of quality and work tirelessly to make IGR what it is today. Lastly and finally, our profound appreciation to all of you, our participants today. Your presence here is truly what has made this evening a success. IGR will continue to work with all of you. We'll be sending you all a feedback form, and we're hoping to hear back from you on your feedback, on your thoughts to make our report better. And thank you so much. Good evening to you all.
It doesn't end without thanking our donors who are so good, they're almost invisible. They never bother us, they never question us. We are extremely grateful to our donors, the Tata Trust, RMP, JT Pathak Trust, Tree of Life Foundation, Lal Family Foundation, Mr. Ravi Venkatesan, Cyrus Gazdar, and others who will support us in the future.
That's a threat, by the way. You have to support us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.